Hi. I started off by first watching the Fits movie, and that was filmed in 2015, and it was a drama, and it was directed by Anna Rose Holmer. And when I did a little bit of research of it, I saw that it was sort of inspired by real life fits, and this has been going on for a long time, unexplainable, like seizure like combustions. The movie starred Tony, and she was an 11-year-old girl who was sort of like a tomboy, but in a way I feel like that was just a product of her environment. Her older brother was sort of the one that was seemed like he was raising her, because she was always at the community center with him and around all of his friends that were boxing. And so while the it opened up, and it, like, the movie, the like beginning of it, it seemed like she sort of struggled to fit in. Like, she wasn't really wholeheartedly interested in boxing, as it was evident when she saw the dance team practicing in the gym, and she was sort of really interested in that. And her brother Jermaine encouraged her to try out. And so she sort of struggles to learn the moves just because of her background in boxing and not really having exposure to dancing like that. And so this all happens at the Lincoln Community Center in Cincinnati. And there are the two older girls, their names were Legs and Charisma, and they were the captains of the team. And all of a sudden, they start having these seizures, like these fits, and it's sort of like shakes up the team. And throughout the movie, Tony is really trying to learn the dance and memorize it for their competition, but eventually it's kind of spreads to the other girls of the team, starting with the older ones. And so she has her friends, her two like good friends, and Jermaine kind of warns Tony not to act like the older girls. And that was referring to like how they act. And Beezy and Tony referred to the fits as the boyfriend disease, because that's the only correlation they saw between the people it was happening to. And throughout the movie, Tony sort of just struggled to fit in. Like, she was never enough for both sides, and she even went through the pain of piercing her own ears and having to hide it from her mother, which sort of shows a lack of a like supportive family home, after seeing Jermaine's reaction to it. And so then the like people from the community come in to test the water for like to try to explain the fits that have been happening, but the water was clean. And when Beezy is talking to the doctor one-on-one, she finally gets the fits. And Tony thinks that she wanted it to happen to her, and that she was kind of insinuating that she was faking it. And then the movie ends with, it was sort of like a dream-like scenario. It starts with her standing in the empty pool, and then it shows her dancing with a team and sort of having, like, she's floating along and everyone's staring at her. And I still didn't really understand, like, what happened. I'm assuming the fits just happened to her and it was her experience, because all the girls seem to have varying situations when it happens to them. So yeah, that was the first one, the fits. And then I was curious to see how the Just Another Girl in the IRT that was filmed in 1992 differed, or what similarities it had, because I knew that we were going to have to be talking about both of them in conversation with each other. And I was actually pretty impressed by this movie. I definitely preferred it over the 2015 The Fits. And it was shot by Leslie Harris, another female director, which is a lot different from the past movies we've watched throughout the semester. And I feel like just a general theme in film too, like, it seems to be predominantly male focused on the director side. And so it revolved around Chantel's high school journey, sort of, and just her environment in Brooklyn, New York. And she kind of was like a rebel, like she wasn't afraid to talk back, but unlike I feel like a lot of high school students, she was able to back it up through her grades because she like had the highest calc grade. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to graduate a year early, and she was constantly trying to fight for herself, even though her environment sort of didn't foster that kind of eagerness in many students. Like that wasn't like going to college wasn't their first priority. And so the movie just kind of follows her like challenging stereotypes and not wanting to be like everyone else and wanting to make something for herself. Like she wanted to go to college and become a doctor, but she ends up meeting this boy Ty, and he has a bit of money, so she's interested in that, and she likes being she liked when he would take her out to eat. And then they start getting sexual, and Ty sort of forces her to go along with the idea of not using any protection, and it ends up backfiring, obviously. But I feel like he kind of took advantage of her because she was constantly telling him, no, I want to be cautious, like I don't want to have to end up like a lot of girls, especially after seeing her one friend, I forget her name, but how it like overtook her life and she couldn't really have a normal teenage years. And so they don't, and then she misses 2 of her periods and starts to worry. And so she does the test and she has to go in and see the physician. And I forget what the lady's name was that she went to for the first consultation at when she found out she was pregnant, and she gave her personal phone number in case she ever needed anything, and she encouraged her Chantel to tell someone because it's such a hard decision for a 17-year-old girl to make on her own. And so when she finally tells Ty, he sort of lashes out on her, thinking that she just used this so that he would marry her, or that it was for personal gain, when really it was honestly sort of his fault because he wouldn't listen to her when she said she wanted to use protection to prevent something like this from happening. And so it just sort of follows Chantel's like internal struggle of what to do and how she is not in like the right environment, sort of, or like doesn't have a community behind her that is kind of nurturing enough to help guide her in the right direction. And so she eventually gets back together like on good terms with Ty, even though she spent the money he gave her for that he borrowed from his uncle. She spent it on clothing when it was meant for an abortion, and that's what Ty considered their agreement. Like that was the decision they came to, when Chantel is constantly reminding him like this is her decision, like she's the one having to go through this. He doesn't have as many like responsibilities in it. And then eventually her water breaks when she's at his place one night, and it sort of shows her lack of preparation, like her environment. She had to have Ty look at the book, and then she resorted to calling what was her name? The lady that she met with at the clinic. And when she finally gives birth to the baby, and she just wants to get rid of it in the moment, so she tells Ty to put it in the trash bag and drop it off somewhere. And then the one kid reported that he saw the kid in the trash, and when Chantel goes to get it, it's not in there. And she comes back and Ty has the baby. And at first I was appalled when I thought that they were going to stick with the decision of basically throwing out the baby, but luckily they came to their senses, and it sort of came full circle. And the film ended by like sort of the aftermath, and Chantel went to community college. She was liking her life there, exploring other relationships, and I feel like it just kind of ended in the right way. Like I felt like comfortable with the ending. Like I think she did the right things and did the best for given the circumstances. And so what both of these films say about being a Black woman is just sort of their struggle for identity and having to constantly live up to either breaking a stereotype or enforcing it based on their environment and situations. And I felt like Toni, her situation was more like, because I mean, they were both surrounded by like similar people, but I feel like Chantel's story was more focused on economics and the projects and the stereotypes against them, while Toni's was more subtle. I feel like also because she was younger and wasn't as outspoken as Chantel was. So I think they both were struggling to find their voice in their own ways, and it's sort of being a Black woman in society did not help them whatsoever. It just hindered them when it shouldn't be able to do that. And about the differences between the different time periods, I really don't think there are many, even though it's been about like 30 years in between both films. Well, currently. But I don't know, I feel like society is still very similar, and similar problems are still going on today, and like a sort of a fight for identity and social problems that includes like just providing the right care. Like even when Chantel wanted an ambulance, it was going to take 45 minutes to an hour to even get one there because they don't have ambulances around in the projects. And like at the community center for Toni, they didn't have the right care. Like it's just still there are social problems that exist that keep like the odds stacked against people. And which movie is more hopeful? I definitely feel like Just Another Girl in the IRT is, just because she's sort of making the best out of her situation, and I mean hopefully she gets to still pursue her dream of being a doctor and not letting what happens to her define her. And I feel like Toni's situation, even though it was hopeful in a way, like it got to end with her team doing the dance, it was still like there was no ending to it in a way. Like I feel like it was sort of up to the viewer's imagination, and there wasn't really much of a solution to the problem. Like no one really cared enough, I feel like, to look into it as much as it should have been. So yeah, I think those are both pretty good movies, and they told important stories that needed to be heard, and especially represented more people than some of the other movies that are popular today, and I enjoyed them both. Thank you.